Okay, this is going to severely test my ability to talk and do anything else at the same time, but I'm going to give it my best shot. First up, we have adventure. I'm just going to play through the entire game one because it's pretty easy to do quickly. I do like the sound of killing the dragons, even though there's not much other sound in the game. In fact, I think the extent of the sounds in the game are picking up and dropping objects, the dragon roaring, killing the dragon, and then, of course, the end sound, which is what this is all about. Picked up the bridge. Because, you know, it's easy for a human to carry a bridge. Alright, I have the golden chalice. You can tell it's golden because it's constantly changing color. And now, wait for it. Here's the big moment. So as far as a game from 1978 goes, those are not bad sounds. There's not a lot of sound in the game, and the celebration sound at the end isn't really music, but it's about as much as you could expect for something musical from this system in 1978. So I'm trying not to grade on a curve, though, because there are a lot of better games coming up. So I'm going to put this in C tier. Jeez. Okay, next up we have Air Sea Battle. This was one of the original 7 games that were released for the Atari VCS in 1977. And I actually think it's the best of the 7, which is not saying much. So pretty much the only sounds that you get in this game are presented right at the beginning when you're doing the game selection. Each of the different kinds of games, there's like, well, anti-aircraft, torpedo, shooting gallery, Polaris, bomber, Polaris versus bomber. So each of those series of game selections has its own corresponding shooting sound. And you hear that when you hit the game select. Sometimes I would just sit there and do that. I always like the sound of the sea battle the best, so let's give that a try. I also had a tendency to just shoot when there was nothing to shoot at on my side of the screen just because I was bored. So that's pretty much it as far as their sea battle goes. I said I wasn't going to grade on a curve. Honestly, this game kind of doesn't sound very good, but I feel kind of an affinity for it, mainly because the back-end game with the Atari 2600 was Combat, which only had the 2-player mode. You had to have somebody else to play with, and I was an only child. So I resented the fact that I couldn't really play Combat. The Sears version of the Atari VCS came with their Sea Battle as the pack-in, and it does have 1-player games. I was playing as player 1 in a 2-player game there, but there is a 1-player version where the first player is just shooting constantly, and then you play as player 2. But it would have been a nice thing to have. So I do think this is probably the best of the original 7 games, and so for that, it can't get any worse than a C. So Air Sea Battle is C tier. Next up, we have Asteroids. So Asteroids has this classic Jaws, basically, music. The arcade version had it, the home version has it. Then you have this irritating sound of shooting. And the thing that really bugged me about it as a kid, and I surprisingly can actually still hear it, it's not just the main pew sound of the shooting. There's a really high-pitched kind of ping that goes along with each shot. So the other thing too is that the music stops if you're shooting a lot, or when the satellite or the UFO come on screen, the regular music stops. I think actually in the arcade version that happens too. Of course, the arcade version is vector and it's monochrome, so in some ways the home version seems kind of more fun, but the asteroids don't move in as wild of patterns as they do in the arcade version. But this is not a game review, this is a sound review. So I think we've heard enough of Asteroids. So Asteroids, I mean, it has that Jaws music. That alone is pretty awesome. So despite the fact that I find the sound of the shooting a little bit annoying, I'm going to put Asteroids in, if I can do move here. I'm going to put Asteroids in B tier. Okay, next up is Basketball, which is actually, I was going to say it's one of the worst sports games. I was going to say it's one of the worst sports games on Atari 2600, but it's not. It is probably the best of the original batch of sports games. Okay, I'm on the one-player version because I can see that. Oh, actually, wait. Yeah, I forgot. You can actually play the game before you're playing the game. So this is something that if you didn't have an Atari, you'd wonder what is going on here because it's getting really psychedelic. But Atari would have the colors cycle so that it wouldn't get burned in on your CRT TV screen. But this is a rare game where like the game action is fully happening even when you're not playing the game. There's just no sound and no score, even though you can shoot and miss spectacularly. But all right, now I'm on the one-player game because the computer's going ham. Oh boy! All right, let's see what it sounds like. Oh. So, this is it. There's two sounds in this game. There's the sound of dribbling, just the sound of the ball hitting the court or hitting anything, and then there's the ping sound for scoring a point. And that's pretty much it. But this game is surprisingly fun, especially when you can steal the ball from the other player. Sound-wise, though, there's not much to it. Oops. So I am going to put Basketball in D tier. Okay, next up we have Battlezone, and this is a newer game, 1983. They had found more interesting ways to kind of fight the burn-in, so it has kind of an attract mode, just like an arcade game would. Of course, Battlezone was another vector game in the arcades, and it actually had like a scope that you had to look through, which is very sanitary. All right, let's check it out. Now, this one is the first one we're going to hear that actually has music, and it, of course, is just right at the beginning. So here we go. And that's it. But for an Atari game, any amount of music is pretty impressive. And, you know, the sound effects are basic, but they're accurate and effective. And I like the fake static on the screen when you get blown up. Come on, shoot me. I want to show it again. There we go. It reminds me of the Reflex video by Duran Duran. Okay, well, that's that. So we've seen all there is to see of Battlezone. Battlezone actually has music, which is kind of a big deal in and of itself, but that's it. And the sound is pretty ordinary after that. So I'm going to put Battlezone in B tier as well. Next up is Berserk. Now, Berserk in the arcade was a big deal because it had digitized voices. There was an evil mastermind named Evil Otto who spoke to the robots, telling them to get the intruder. I can't remember the exact phrase he used because I only played this once in an arcade as a kid. Arcade games were a lot harder than the Atari versions. Anyway, let's just jump into this. This does not have the voice synthesis or digitization, but it still has some good sounds. So here we go. And what a way to start. Now, the thing I just have to say is I'm used to playing this with an Atari CX40 joystick, not a gamepad like this. So this is another game that doesn't have a lot of sound most of the time, but I really do like the sounds of the shooting and how your shooting is kind of frantic and high-pitched, and the robot's shooting is like this low pew kind of sound, which is fitting for how big they are. But there's one little bit of music or musicness, music-like sound that happens when you get a bonus life. I just need to get a bonus life. Those robots are dumb. There we go. Now, the exact pitches it produces are slightly different each time. Ooh, 2 and 1. Uh-oh. I just have to say that this game actually holds up really well, more than almost any other Atari 2600 game. It's just as fun as it ever was. Oh boy. The D-pad. I'm not used to the D-pad. Okay, well, we get the idea. So, Berserk. It doesn't have any music. I think if it had the voice, I would definitely put it in A tier. Since it lacks the voice, though, I'm going to put it in B tier. I think B tier is going to fill up pretty quickly. Okay, next up we have bowling. This is a very polarizing game. I have to admit, I really like it. It's stupid, but I like it. Probably because it's one of the first games I got the day we got our Atari. We bought a few games, and this was one of them. And it was one that my mom actually liked to play. I don't know if that was part of why I liked it, because she was generally not too into this stuff. But so let's see, what sounds do we have in bowling? Ugh. I would really like to get a strike here so you can hear the full effect. But this is a bit more difficult with the D-pad. Well, if I don't ever get a strike, it's just more of that. Oh, so close. I feel good about this one. Yes. I noticed it had some of the same seizure-inducing color strobing that Adventure has when you win. So, I am really tempted to put bowling in A tier just because I love it. I can't though. It's not that good. I'll put it in B tier. All right, the next one we have is Centipede. Now, this is from kind of the turning point in the middle of 1982 when Atari kind of raised their game in terms of home adaptations. They're not ports. Porting is taking the same code base and recompiling it for a different system. These are adaptations. It's a sore point for me. But having a title screen and that wild looking Atari logo, pretty cool. Of course, that's in lieu of having any music. But there's certain elements, there's a lot of sound effects in this game, even to the point where some of it kind of sounds musical. So let's just get into it. I like the sound the spider makes. Sometimes I let the spider stay on the screen longer just so I can hear its sound. What I'm really hoping for is the flea. There it is. As I talked over it. The flea only comes on when there's less than 5 mushrooms. Talk over again. The flea comes on the screen with less than 5 mushrooms in the bottom quarter, I would say, of the screen. And of course, you have the constant marching of the centipede, which you can hear better when I'm not shooting. So, even though there's no music in this game, I think they did a really good job with the sound. And like I said, some things almost sound musical. So, that's Centipede. For me, Centipede is clearly A tier as far as Atari 2600 goes. Okay, next we have Chopper Command. This is our first non-Atari game, I believe. Yes. So the ends of these cartridges aren't flat, so they're not going to stand up quite as nicely on my little stand here. In fact, I'll just put it upside down. That's what they get for using cheap glue on their stickers. So I didn't realize when I was a kid just how much a lot of Activision games are just blatant rip-offs of other arcade games, but Activision didn't ever get the rights to arcade games until very late, like post-Crash. See if you can figure out what arcade game this is supposed to be. Ah. So obviously the context is different. We're in the desert instead of, well, I guess in a city at nighttime. And this is... I'm not good at this game. This is almost as hard as Defender, which is what it is obviously an imitation of. Atari got a lot of flack for how inaccurate their version of Defender was. So Activision produced this game as a competitor to it. Timing-wise, I'm not sure I got that right. I think they came out at about the same time. But Activision probably got word that Atari had secured the rights to Defender. Of course, I'm talking over all of the sounds. So let's just listen to it for a second. Ah, I'm really not good. But I'm also not trying that hard. And I'm talking at the same time, which you know how that goes. So this game has pretty good sound effects. Not really any music to speak of, but it has some unique sounds that I haven't heard in other Atari games, which is kind of significant in and of itself. But I hate to say it, I feel like it needs to go in B tier. I'm going to have to redesign this. I should have had 2 rows for B tier. Maybe I'll just have to squish them all together. All right, let's move on. Okay, now we have Combat. This was the pack-in game with the Atari 2600 for many years. So there were more copies of this game made than any other game for the system probably until E.T. Pac-Man for sure. Pac-Man then became the pack-in game. Not because of the similarity of the name, but they were just trying to get rid of... Oh my god, I never noticed before that the 2 tanks are not symmetrically placed on the screen when you start. That's so weird. Anyway, there's a lot of copies of Combat out there. I own probably 6 or 7 myself. So, one thing I really like about the sound in Combat is how there's like this engine rumbling sound at all times. But then there's another layer to it when you move the tank. I also love how you can steer your shots. Of course, this is the most basic version. There's no obstacles. It's just you and the other tank, and your shots don't go all the way across the screen, so you gotta get close. And then, kapow! Wrap around. I would sometimes do this by myself as a kid. The other player really sucks when they don't exist. Alright, so that's tanks. There's a lot of other games in this. Oh, this is Invisible Tank. Alright, biplane, or this is the biplane. Yeah. It's got 2 engines. It's really weird. You know, the compromises they had to make with these sprites when they're rotating. It's really weird looking. And once again, you can steer your shots. And somehow you don't collide. Right, let me see here. Yeah. So I guess there's depth that we're just not seeing here, because the planes don't actually collide into each other. You have to shoot to cause any damage. And what else have we got? I like this one with the 3 little planes against the big fat plane. Of course, I'm the big fat plane. Now, there's some tricks to how Atari games were programmed. You could duplicate a sprite. That's why there's the 3. And I'm not going to be playing Home Run, but Home Run, the baseball game that was so bad they couldn't even call it baseball. That also had a situation where you had the player was duplicated, so you had 3 guys that moved in unison across the screen. but you could duplicate the sprite. You could also double the width of the sprite. And so that's what's happening right here. Gotcha. All right, so that's combat. Boy, I feel like it almost has to go in B tier too. But you know what? No, I like the sounds in the air sea battle better, and combat was one of the other originals. I'm gonna put combat in D tier, honestly. If basketball's in D tier, so is combat. Okay, next we're going to have Cosmic Arc. This is the first Imagic game that I have here. And their games are really not flat on the bottom, so it's going to be upside down. Let's go. So this game has two phases. First, there's the collecting rocks phase for fuel. And it even has the topped up bell sound. And then there's the go to the planet and rescue two of each species. Get it? Cosmic Arc. So, Imagic and Activision were both founded to create games for the Atari 2600 with higher standards for the graphics and sounds than Atari themselves were putting in. And Activision at least wanted to give the game designers credit because Atari kept them anonymous. I don't think Imagic gave them credit, but both were founded by former Atari game developers. And Imagic's games are known for being pretty colorful. And I've always really liked this game, even though it's kind of just these two phases that repeat with slight variations each time. Having two completely different modes of a game like this was pretty... Oh, I'm not going to get back in time. This is what happens when you talk and play at the same time. Oh, but get multiple lives because it's an Atari game. Okay. We get the idea. Cosmic Arc, it's a great game. There's not really any music, but I think the sound effects are pretty good. So that's going to go into A tier for me. Next up, we have Defender. This was a game I was ripping on a little bit earlier with Chopper Command. So let's see what this is like. So right off the bat, it screams at you with an annoying sound. I guess it's a warning that the aliens are coming. Yes. So this game, you know, there's some... It's hard. It's not nearly as hard as the arcade version. And there's actually a game variation that was for kids that's like super easy. And so easy, in fact, that one time I famously played one game of Defender for 6 hours. And somehow I survived. Or did I? Okay, this game got a lot of crap because your ship disappears when you shoot. Because again, I was talking about the sprite tricks that they used. They actually turn your ship into the shot. That's why your ship disappears. So, okay. Well, we heard the sounds. I don't really like the sounds in this game. They're all kind of annoying. And there's no music, of course. But there's at least a lot of sounds, and they have a context, so I'm going to put it in C tier. Okay, time for another Magic cartridge. This is Demon Attack. Demon Attack is probably my favorite like space alien shooter type game for the Atari 2600 for a couple of reasons. Well, three reasons. I really like how colorful the aliens are. Even though there's like the background is just a black void. Feels like they could have worked some stars in or something. But I really like how the weird movement of the aliens makes them hard to shoot, as you can see here. Ah, music, if you can call it that. So this game, like Space Invaders and like many of those types of games, has it has this constant droning noise in the background to create tension, and you know, the sounds when you shoot the aliens are kind of annoying, but seems fitting. I like the little music you get when you have a bonus life, and at a certain point in the game, the aliens split into two when you shoot them. You have to shoot them again, which gives a lot more depth. And of course, as you've seen here, there's different kinds of shots that the aliens drop. So this is a pretty successful game as far as what your expectations should be of an Atari 2600 game. Well, that's enough of that. So, you know, I've sung the praises of Cosmic Arc, and I'm also singing the praises of Demon Attack. Magic did a pretty good job with both of those games. Some other Magic games, not so great. Atlantis, of course, is a good one that I omitted from this list. They had a few others that were decent, but for me, Cosmic Arc and Demon Attack are the two best. And they're a couple of the best games on the 2600. All right, let's move on. Come on. What the hell? It just blasted me away. Okay. Okay, on to Dig Dug. This is from the same era of games that Atari was producing around the time Centipede came out. I think Moon Patrol. I kind of think of Centipede, Dig Dug, and Moon Patrol as a trilogy from Atari around the same time. 1983. Did I put... Oh, okay. As you can see here, it's got an attract mode also. Obviously, it's simplified from the arcade version, but when you think about the limitations of the Atari 2600, this is actually a pretty decent game. And it has music. So a big part of why I found Dig Dug so fun in the arcade, aside from just sort of the cartoony silliness of the characters, which gets a little bit lost in this version, the music was a big part of it. It just was a much different vibe than a lot of the really sort of aggressive type of games. All right, well, you've heard all of the music there. That's legit music. It's a little out of tune, but it's pretty much all of the music from the arcade game. So, without a doubt, for me, Dig Dug is S tier. Shouldn't move that. No, that's already there. Okay. I haven't been saving those, damn it. Oh, I'll do that at the end. Oops. Okay, next we have Donkey Kong. This is the first one from Coleco that I'll be showing. These also are kind of unbalanced on the end, but the label is printed the other way around anyway, so it stacks up nicely like that. All right, Donkey Kong. Mario's looking a little sickly. Sorry, I was getting so into it, I didn't even think to say anything. The biggest downside for me about the Atari 2600 version of Donkey Kong, aside from whatever Donkey Kong himself is supposed to be, is I talked over the only bit of actual music in this game. Well, I suppose you could count that as music. So, yeah, Donkey Kong looks ridiculous. The other big problem is that I talked over the dying again. The other big problem is that it only has these two screens instead of all four. But this game gets ragged on a lot, really only because of how Donkey Kong looks. It's not a perfect rendition of the arcade game, but it's perfectly playable, and it feels like Donkey Kong, and it is way, way better than the Intellivision version. So I feel like it got a bum rap. People thought Coleco was deliberately making these games bad to make the ColecoVision versions seem better. But I mean, the ColecoVision was just a much more capable system, so of course they were going to be better. I don't think they were deliberately hobbling these games at all. And this was one of my favorite games to play as a kid. It also is one of the most widely heard sound effects of video games in TV and movies to this day. It's kind of like the Wilhelm scream. If you see a scene in any kind of TV or movie where if it's set in an arcade for sure, but if there's any kind of din of video games happening, you will for sure hear sounds from Donkey Kong and Pac-Man from the Atari 2600. They're just staple sound effects. So, you know what? For that reason, and the fact that I feel like the sound that Mario makes when he runs is about as close to the actual arcade version as they possibly could have come up with on an Atari 2600. So, probably just to piss some people off, I'm going to put Donkey Kong in the A tier. Oh, wait. Honduras next. Okay, next we have Enduro from Activision. That's why it's upside down and why the label looks so bad. The cheap glue. So this is another case where Activision was trying to one-up Atari. Atari had come out with Pole Position, which was great. I was actually going to do Pole Position on this, but I couldn't find my cartridge of it, so I went with my backup, which is Enduro. Enduro is kind of a more fun game just because it has varying conditions. Like there's parts where you're driving in the snow, parts where there's fog, parts where it's nighttime. But the actual gameplay, not so much. So this engine noise, I mean, it's nice that it has like the changing gears, but the speed that these cars come flying at you makes no sense. And all I'm doing is gradually tapping occasionally to straighten my steering. That screeching sound, I mean, I just don't like the sounds in this game. It also feels like, in some ways, some of the later Activision games, they kind of lost their mojo, it seems like. And I feel like this was one of the first batch of games where it just didn't feel like they were trying as hard. Oh, there's some snow. So now we get this different sounds. The snow. The sound of the car driving on the snow is slightly different. The other sounds continue to be as annoying as ever. So that's the idea of that game. I've played enough of that. I'm going to put Enduro in C tier. I think it just keeps repeating that phrase over and over. But it's an attempt at the theme music from E.T., which is probably the best thing about this game. Okay, that sounds pretty cool too. So I actually like E.T. and I like his little head goes up. I think that was Elliot. Yep. He looks more like Ernie from Sesame Street with that striped shirt and the black hair, but uh-oh, that guy's bad. Now I'm in town somehow. And now I can't teleport anymore. I must have used up all my teleport energy. Oh no, they're coming for me. And I fall in a hole. If you know anything about this game, it's all about falling in holes. I tried desperately not to fall in a hole again in this screen. Oh, another hole. Oh, he's coming for me. Now, this is supposed to be a forest, which is just ridiculous. Ah, they got me. I don't know where they're taking me now. I've never played this long enough to... Oh, they're taking me to that building. Nope, they're taking me to that building. I guess I'm in jail now. Oh, now I'm out. Oh, they're coming for me again. I know what I need to do. Yay! I'm to stay down in this hole. So, this game is notorious. People say it's the worst game for the Atari 2600. I disagree. I don't even think it's the worst game by the developer of this game. And you'll get to see the game that I think is the worst that he produced. He also produced one of my absolute favorites, so we'll get to that too. But, yeah, run away. I should probably fact check this before. Oh my god, you keep falling in the hole. The problem with this game was just that it was rushed. And so it has some glitches and some of the gameplay is just not the best, like the falling in holes thing. And of course, without the instruction manual, it's kind of impossible to figure out what you're supposed to do. Except pick up those things which I think are supposed to be Reese's Pieces. Now I'm back in the forest again. So, that's it. What? He's not going to take me? Oh, am I hiding in the forest? He can't find me when we're in the forest? I don't know. I don't know what the score means. With every step I take, it goes down. Oh, now he sees me. Oh, no. Yeah, well, I'm in a hole again. They never come free in the hole. I'll just stay down here. So, what should I say about E.T.? They did recreate the music. They did a bad job of it. The other sounds are okay, but like the rest of the game, it all just kind of doesn't make sense and feels rushed and not very good. So I'm going to put E.T. I'm going to put E.T. in D tier. Okay, time for more Activision. This is Freeway. Now, when you see Freeway, you're going to think this is a blatant ripoff of Frogger. Especially since I was talking about how Activision would rip off games, like arcade games, from other companies. Here's the thing. Freeway actually came first. So you, of course, are the chicken. I think this is a competitive game, so there's another chicken. I'm the chicken on the left, trying to get across the road. Why? Who knows? Now, I do have to say, I like the sound of the car horns. It sounds like a car horn. They did a pretty good job with that. Way to go, David Crane. Yeah, David Crane. See, with the Activision games, you know who did it. Yeah, I like the cars. You know, it's simplistic because you can't even move side to side. It's just chicken just wants to get across that road. And of course, you don't die when you get hit by a car. You just get sent back a little way. That makes sense. So yeah, as I was saying, I do like the sound of the car horns, and I like the way that the engine noise kind of gets louder and quieter when the cars are closer to you or farther away. So that's good. But overall, this game is just not really that great. I'm already bored. It's not terrible though. I'm not even going to show you Laser Blast. So I will put Freeway in D tier. Okay, so I was just talking about Frogger. Here's my first Parker Brothers game. Has to be upside down again because all of the companies that were producing third-party games seem to have, like, you know, not a flat end on the cartridge was like part of their shtick. So Frogger, this is a port, not a port, an adaptation of the arcade game. And this is one of the most fun games on the Atari 2600. And it has good music. So it only has the music between. I'm gonna have to actually finish the whole level to get the other music. There's only music at the beginning of the game and between levels. I was hoping to save the dying sound for later. Because it is one of my favorite sounds in an Atari game. Well, I'm not going to bother to get to the other music. Let's hear one more dying. Yes. And one more. I love it. Okay. Frogger is S tier. It's just fun. All right, next up we have Galaxian. Now, Galaxian was an arcade game that then had a sequel that was much more popular called Galaga. They never released Galaga for the Atari 2600. They did release Galaxian. It's just a more colorful Space Invaders, really. Galaga had more interesting movements with the aliens. This, of course, as with all of these types of games, there's a constant terrifying din in the background. That sound that it makes when you shoot has been recycled in a lot of Atari games. I do like the sound when you shoot an alien. It's almost musical. Of course, the worst thing about this game is this ridiculous orange rectangle that you're in. Why are you in an orange rectangle? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, I almost feel that the developer was probably creating it without the orange rectangle, and their boss said, you know, they wanted to have stars, but they couldn't do stars, and it was just a blank void, and the boss said, you gotta have something. There has to be a background. So they put in a rectangle. Now, the one disappointing thing about this game, but I understand why it has to happen, is that the aliens are multicolored when they're in formation, but they turn to a single color when they are dive bombing you. That's just a limitation of the system. I also do not like the fact, and this bugged me even as a kid, that your shot, when you're ready to shoot, your shot appears and it's off-center. Why is it off-center? It's off-center because there's an even number of pixels at the tip of your ship, and so the shot would have been twice as wide. Or I don't know why they didn't just make the ship 1 pixel narrower. Anyway, that's pretty much it for Galaxian. Looking at the others, I think it has to go in B tier. I'm going to fill up B tier pretty fast here. Okay, next is another Activision game, Grand Prix. And you can see this is actually one of the cartridges I owned as a kid because I wrote my initials on it. I think I lent it to a friend. Probably the same friend who lent me Galaxian. Alright. This was actually the first non-Atari game that I ever owned. I didn't even realize until I saw this at Musicland in Rochester, Minnesota, that there were other companies that made games for the Atari 2600. And let's check it out. So this game, of course, was also designed by David Crane, the same designer who did Freeway. So he had so much success with that, I guess, that he decided to just expand it. Oof. Yeah, I'm crashing on purpose now, just to show how annoying that sound is. Oof. Yeah, I don't really like the sounds in this game. Especially, it's just so aggravating when you're really getting fast and then the car comes flying. There's the oil slicks, those sound nice. Hey, what do you know, I won. This is a game that seemed impressive when it first came out just because graphically it was so much more than what Atari was doing with a lot of their games, but the gameplay in it is really pretty shallow, and sound effects are not good. They're annoying. I'm going to put it right next to Freeway. Okay, we're deep in the Activision phase here. This is Hero. Hero actually came out in 1984. It was one of the later games. I personally think this is the best game on the Atari 2600, but mainly for its gameplay, not for its sounds. So, what's that again? Mainly for its gameplay, not for its sounds. I mean, that explosion's not too bad. Sound effects are fine, but they're a little annoying. And then of course there's no music. There is that sound when you die though, which is probably the coolest sound in the game. It almost makes me want to die more often. gonna have to experience that one more time. Okay. So that's Hero. The game itself is definitely S tier, but the sound effects are not so great. Should it go in B tier? Should it go in A tier? It's gonna go in B tier. All right, next up we have Haunted House. So the thing about Haunted House is that you deliberately can't see everything that's on the screen. I mean, everything that's happening in the game. You do have a lit match that lets you see the stairs. I mean, that sound of walking up and down the stairs, I think that's what you're doing, is, uh-oh, the ghost got me. Now that sound effect is in a lot of Atari games. Anyway, my point is that this is a game where the sound is a key element to the game, which is extremely rare for Atari games. But you can't really play this game with the sound off. You can, but I mean, you miss a lot of what's going on. So the closest it gets to music is that sound when you are going up and down the stairs. At least you consider that music. So as far as actual music and the actual sounds go, they're not the greatest, but I'm going to put Haunted House in A tier just because sound matters in this game. Okay, Journey Escape. I hope I don't get a copyright strike for this. So this is one of the stupidest, worst games of the Atari 2600, and I just realized now that I think they stole that background sparkling effect from Cosmic Arc. So anyway, I'm Steve Smith here, the drummer. You can tell by the initials at the top. So you're playing as the members of Journey trying to escape from the concert to your getaway vehicle, and you're being hounded by fans, which are represented by hearts with legs, and shifty-eyed promoters, stages that are randomly floating. I ran out of time. Did I miss my? Okay. And there's also, let's see, oh yes, the flashing things. They're supposed to be cameras of paparazzi. So, if I get away from these guys, sometimes your manager... Oh, there's your manager! Get him! Ah, I missed him. If you get the manager, who's like Kool-Aid Man... Oh, watch out for those aliens. I don't even know what they're about. Anyway, if you get your manager, it's kind of like getting the invincibility star. Yes. Now I can just cruise ahead, and I gotta find my getaway vehicle. There it is. So, yeah, believe it or not, I had this game as a kid, and I actually played it more than any human should. I think I knew it was not good, but there was just something about it that I liked. I don't think I knew, because of my age, I didn't know Don't Stop Believing. I knew Separate Ways. I loved Separate Ways. It was one of my favorite songs in 1982. And I was a little disappointed that that was not in this. But maybe it is, and I just couldn't recognize it. Yeah, this is supposed to be Don't Stop Believing. I don't know. What can I say about this? The music's terrible, the game's even worse. But it actually has... they made a significant effort to try to recreate the song. What can I say about it? This has got my whole formula all thrown off. Make it stop. Okay. That was what needed to happen. I needed to hear it enough times to acknowledge that it is terrible. I'm going to put it in D tier. No, I'm going to put it in F tier. Okay, so there's 3 Pac-Man games that I'm going to be doing, and since I'm doing this in alphabetical order, they're going to be in reverse order of when they were released. And, aside from E.T., the original Pac-Man for the Atari 2600 probably gets some of the most flack of any game that existed on the system. And then you look at this, which was just produced a couple of years later. It's hard to believe that it even is the same system. It's so much better. It's such a better game. Of course, there's one compromise they had to do. The original arcade Junior Pac-Man, the maze scrolled side to side, and just owing to some of the quirks of like the coding shortcuts and tricks they had to use to make this kind of game possible, it had to scroll vertically instead of horizontally. But that doesn't really take away from the overall experience of the game. So let's check it out. And I really like what they did with the colors of the ghosts, even though they do occasionally have to flicker when they're on screen at the same time. I mean, even the NES had that problem. I just don't get the sound of me dying. The ghosts don't even want me. There we go. Okay. Junior Pac-Man is excellent. One of the best games on the system. They nailed the sounds. It's got music at the beginning. I don't remember exactly how this stuff sounds in the arcade version, but it all sounds right to me. I mean, it sounds like a Pac-Man game in all the right ways. So, oops, these are out of order. I'm going to put Junior Pac-Man in A tier. No, I'm going to put Junior Pac-Man in S tier. All right, next we have Jungle Hunt. This was always a fun game. There's a little bit of music at the beginning. I really don't like the fact that the rope is the same color as your player in the part where he is. That's another one of those coding tricks they had to use. You didn't notice it as much on the CRT though. So this game has music at the beginning of each level. It has the obligatory ominous repetitive music when you're underwater. Oh, I'm almost out of air. I don't know why you make that noise when you're at the surface and no noise at all when you're not at the surface. Should be almost done with this part. Chill out, alligator. I like the thundering sounds of the boulders. I love how he looks when he's squished. Anyway, I like the sound of the boulders. It's pretty good. Uh-oh, I'm gonna get squished again. Ah, I made it. Oh. Each one of these levels seems to go just a little bit longer than it seems like it should. This guy's kind of a bad stereotype. I don't know how to get over him. I don't know if I've ever even beaten this. Oh, I did it. Bye. Oh, there's another one. What? Okay, here we go. Is there a damsel in distress? Of course there is. Seems like there should be some celebratory music, not just the beep 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 of all of your bonus points. But what are you gonna do? And then it just starts over again. Alright, well, that's pretty much all there is to that game, which is actually quite a lot. It is one of the better games on the Atari 2600. Sound-wise, you know, it's not fantastic. It does have some music. I'm looking at what else I have in the B tier, and I feel like it has to go in A tier. If there was an A- tier or maybe a B+ tier, I'd put it there, but it's going to go in A. All right, Kaboom. This is another Activision game. This is the first game I'm playing here on this list that uses the paddles. So the paddle controller, there's absolutely nothing comparable to it in any game system that has been produced after the Atari 2600. And it was really something special with the right kind of game. And I think Kaboom is the best. Oh, I'm getting so excited I need to take a drink of water. Kaboom is the best game for getting into the flow state with the paddles. And there's just nothing that compares to it. Of course, you can't really play it properly with a modern controller. It just there's just a nuance to turning the paddle. So I'm not going to get very far in this, but I just want to see what it sounds like. So see, you can use the thumbstick, but it's not sensitive enough. And there's a difference between, you know, you do this, whoa, and if I use the D-pad, it's even more wonky, but you move it and you let go. But with the paddle, you're constantly just turning it ever so slightly or really fast. But, you know, this can only go so fast too. But whereas with paddle, it moves, these are supposed to be buckets of water. That's the one thing about this game. How are those buckets of water? I don't know. But you can move them much faster with the paddle than you can with this. So there's no way I'm going to get anywhere with this game. But let's just give it a shot. So let's Mr. Convict there at the top smiles whenever you miss one of his bombs. Now, I mentioned earlier the very bad adult games that were for the Atari 2600. There was a game, which I'm not going to show here, that's basically a knockoff of this game, but it's really pretty gross. Okay, so you get the idea. One thing you may have noticed as I was talking is that did I even finish the level? I did finish the first level. Each level you progress, he drops more bombs and he drops them faster. He drops them farther spread, and the sound effect of catching the bombs goes up in pitch, which really builds the intensity of the game. So again, there's no music in this, but I feel like they did a really... Larry Kaplan, who also created Bridge for the Atari 2600, which I'm not going to be talking about. It all fits together. This game is just amazing when you play it with a real paddle, which unfortunately I can't do here. But the sound effects are an integral part of that. So Kaboom is A tier. Okay, next we have Kangaroo. This is another kind of late, like right around the time of the crash, adaptation of an arcade game. I don't know why they made the background purple. I think it's just black in the arcade game. So, visually it's simplified, but it has the music, has the punching, and then you have to, of course, holding a modern game pad, I forget the Atari 2600 only had the one button, so you actually have to press up on the joystick to jump. Uh-oh. So this, of course, is really... I can punch the monkeys, but I have to jump over the apples they're throwing. I think they're throwing apples. Who knows? I mean, these monkeys are throwing apples that are tiny dots, yet there are strawberries that are bigger than the monkeys. It doesn't make sense. But it does have music, and the sound effects are interesting. Oh, I ducked. I actually did it. Punch him. Ah. Oh, okay. I never played this game very much, so I couldn't even remember if it had music. I thought it did. The music's pretty good. I would say looking at what else I've got in here, I'm going to put it in the A tier. Okay, next we have Keystone Capers. This is another Activision game. This is another one. I absolutely loved this game back when it came out in 1983. I was oblivious to the crash. I was in 3rd grade, and I didn't even know about it. All I knew is that suddenly games were showing up with a little notch cut out of the box. Did they do that? Like cutout records? Maybe not, but bins at Kmart full of Atari games for like $1.98. Which was pretty cool to me. I got Yar's Revenge that way. But anyway, this was another game that I really loved playing back then. Doesn't really... I guess you could consider that music. I'm too impatient to wait for the elevator. I like the speed of your guy running, your Keystone Cop. And I thought the idea of a platform game taking place in a 3-floor department store was kind of a fun idea. I like how it's got the little map at the bottom so you can see where the thief is that you're chasing after. The running sound does get kind of annoyingly repetitive after a while, but at least you have that sound. Now I always like to jump on him. I like the sound when you jump. It's not realistic at all, but, you know, there's a really funny sound that happens when you run out of time, but I don't think I'm going to get to that point here. I think it happens when you die, too, because you die when you run out of time. Isn't that how things work? That's pretty good, too. That was just losing time. That's supposed to be a radio. Now, what would really have been cool is if the radio had some kind of music-like sound that would get louder as you got closer to the radio. But that's probably asking for too much. These shopping carts you gotta watch out for. Alright, as you can see, I just get swept up in playing this game. But you're not watching this game you're not watching this video to watch me play Keystone Capers. So, where does it stand? There's not really any music. Sound effects are both good and annoying. I want to put it in B tier. Yet another Activision game, Mega Mania. So, Mega Mania was the first in a series of just kind of uninspired, to my mind, uninspired shooters that Activision started putting out around this time. Spider Fighter was one of them. Plaque Attack, I think, didn't they do that? Because there was another one where there was... Yeah, Plaque Attack's the one where you have the tube of toothpaste. You're squirting toothpaste at food that's going to the teeth. I don't know. I hate that game. I don't really like this game either. It's kind of irritating to me. That sounds cool. Okay, when you die, that sound is cool, but all the other sounds in this game are really annoying to me. And whatever these things are supposed to be that you're shooting, you know, the subtitle of this game is A Space Nightmare, so it's supposed to be kind of surreal. Like, I feel like... This was Steve Cartwright. I feel like he probably had a dream where he was being told he had to create a space shooter, and he was really stressed out about it, and it became this. And so, you know, his dream is the actual game. Maybe that's it. Anyway, I just don't find this game very fun. It's stressing me out right now. Okay. That one's going in D tier just because I don't like it. I'm being very subjective here. Okay, next up is Moon Patrol. Oh, that's right. I'm going to start it over because the sound wasn't playing right away, because you can actually turn the sound on and off. I think the difficulty switches control whether the sound... Oh. Controller got disconnected. How'd that happen? We just need to start this one all over. Okay, next up is Moon Patrol. Why is it disconnecting again? What is happening? Why does it keep doing this? Get out of here, you biscuit. Wait, flick that. Flick that. Okay, why isn't it working? It was totally fine. Now I gotta make sure that hijack is actually getting it. Okay, good. Is this working? Why is it not working? All right, well, my gamepad randomly disconnected in the middle of doing this, so... Okay, my gamepad randomly stopped working, so I'm going to just have to use the keyboard from this point forward. So next up we have Moon Patrol. Don't know the controls here. Sounds not... music's not on. Damn it. What are the key commands? There we go. I don't know what I changed, but... Okay, Moon Patrol. What is the jump button? Don't know the controls on this damn thing. There we go. Right. That's jump. Let's shoot. Ah, okay, that's the shoot. I need to start over. Okay, Moon Patrol, and you may notice I'm having to use the keyboard now because my gamepad randomly disconnected and I can't figure out what happened. So, as a kid, Moon Patrol was my absolute favorite video game music. And then when I was in high school and I joined the jazz band, I realized that the music from Moon Patrol is a 12-bar blues. Obviously, this version of the music is a little thinner than the arcade version, but it captures the essence. And it's my favorite video game music from the 80s. So, well, not from the 80s, from this era. So Moon Patrol is S tier, no doubt. All right, let's see if I can get this controller working again. Okay, now it's working. Is it working? Yes. All right, let's try this all over again. Forget all that stuff I just did about Moon Patrol. All right, next up is Moon Patrol. Wait. Do this. Next up is Moon Patrol. So when I was a kid, Moon Patrol music was my absolute favorite video game music. And then when I joined the jazz band in high school, I realized that the music from Moon Patrol is a 12-bar blues. So the Atari version of Moon Patrol is a little bit simpler than the others. Maybe I'll just forget that. I'll just use the keyboard version. Okay, so I got my controller working again. This is Mousetrap from Coleco. I like how when you hold down the reset button, the beginning of the intro music just loops. Ugh. Now it disconnected again. Now I'm stuck listening to this. There we go. Let's try that again, clean. So Mousetrap is an arcade port, which seems to be run off the edge of the screen. How did that happen? Anyway, it has a few interesting twists to make it different from Pac-Man, like the fact that you collect these bones that let you turn into a dog, but you can choose when to use them. And then it also has these moving doors that you can use to trap the cats. The one thing that is an annoying concession to... Oh, look, I got two of the cats trapped inside that one. Ha! One annoying concession to the limitations of the Atari with one button on the joystick is that I believe the arcade version had two buttons, one for switching the doors and one for turning into a dog. And it's the same button for both. If you tap it quickly, you turn into the dog. And if you hold it, you change the doors. And the dog mode doesn't last very long. I gotta get that last, whatever it is, piece of cheese, I guess. So, this is a pretty decent game in the Pac-Man vein. I mean, it's much more well done than the original Pac-Man for Atari 2600. Has a little bit of music, has some fun twists. Of course, again, this isn't a game review, it's a music review. The music for this game is okay. I'm going to put it in B tier. B tier is filling up. Okay, Ms. Pac-Man. Now, Atari did not waste a lot of time after releasing the original Pac-Man to try to, settle the score and improve people's perception of things by releasing Ms. Pac-Man later in the same year. It's quite a bit better. It's still not perfect, and I'm confused why this is running off the edge of the screen. Something got messed up when I was testing. Why is it cutting off? Let's see if I can fix this. Is it fixed? Who knows? Yes, they have a attract mode / title screen. Of course, they don't say the names of the ghosts. That would be fun. But it's a nice effort. All right, let's hear what it actually sounds like. I mean, serious props for doing harmony, even though it kind of was a disaster. I got to that power bill in time. I mean, this game is just so vastly superior. The edge is still cut off. This is so vastly superior to Pac-Man. It still looks kind of weird and doesn't sound the greatest, but I mean, the ghosts are different colors. It has the different power-ups. It has the actual intro music. I mean, this is a successful Atari adaptation of the game. That is not the right sound, but, what are you going to do? Okay, so, Ms. Pac-Man. If you're grading it with generously in what an improvement it is over the original Pac-Man, it should go pretty high on the list. But I think realistically, it's still not perfect. It's comparable to Mousetrap, so I'm going to give it it's going to be B tier. Okay, we're back to Activision. This is Oink. Now, this didn't occur to me until possibly today in the realm of the Activision games being knockoffs of arcade games. I think, in a way, Oink might be intended as a knockoff of Zookeeper. So, you're the three little pigs, and there's the big bad wolf trying to blow your house down, and you're picking up bricks. I mean, this is supposed to be a straw house. They look like bricks. They're yellow like straw, but they're shaped like bricks. Come on now. So, I mean, those are pitched sounds that raise in pitch as the intensity increases. And they almost are going up in a scale. It doesn't sound horribly out of tune. So I guess there's some credit for that. Oh, I'm gonna get stressed out. I gotta stop. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna give Oink an A. Partly just because B tier is getting filled up, but I guess A is getting filled up too. I am being way too generous. Don't worry, that's about to change, though. Okay, now we have Outlaw. This is a very early game. It's not one of the original batch, but it came out in 1978, and it's extremely rudimentary. I mean, the sound of you walking around does kind of evoke jangling spurs a little bit, I guess, but the ricochet sound does not. Let's see. The gunshot sounds pretty good. Now listen to the sound when the guy gets hit. Ow. I swear it's saying ow. Ow. Can I shoot the cactus? There's some games where... There's some rounds in this where I think the stagecoach, you can actually shoot through this... Wait, is this where it is? There's one where you can... Ow. There's one where you can shoot away the stagecoach. Yeah, there you go. That's good. Of course, this is supposed to be a two-player game. It's not really fair to just be shooting a guy that's just standing there. Anyway, that's Outlaw. It's dumb, but it's fun. The sound is not good, though. Well, the ow is pretty good. But I can't put it any higher than C. It would be a D without the ow. Pac-Man. Okay, I guess I should actually play it. That's another sound that you'll hear in TV and movies all the time. Now here's something that people got wrong. The ghosts are not the same color. It's a little easier to tell in emulation than it is on an old CRT TV, but they are actually different colors. It's just that they're flickering so much, it's hard to see what color they are. Okay, we don't need to hear that a second time. Pac-Man's an F. Okay, next up we have Pitfall. This was a groundbreaking game for just how expansive the world was in it. And the graphics are pretty impressive. It's a really interesting concept. But that's like almost the only sound there is in the game. When you jump, it goes like that. When you swing, and then that's it. Those are all the sounds. I had actually forgotten there was that much. I was going to put it in F tier, but I think I'm going to need to be a little nicer to it because it's such an amazing game. D tier. No, you know what? That's not fair. C. It's at least as good as Outlaw. Okay, next up we have Pitfall 2 Lost Caverns. Now this game is kind of cheating. This game is kind of cheating. There's a dedicated sound chip inside the cartridge to allow it to play music. Falling into your first hole in this game is mind-blowing because until that point you think it's just like the first game. And you don't die when you hit any of these, you just go back to the most recent checkpoint. This game is massive for an Atari 2600 game, and it's pretty awesome. And you notice that the music slows down and goes into a minor key when you hit an enemy and get sent back to the checkpoint. So even though it's cheating because it has its own dedicated sound chip, it does things you never would have thought possible in an Atari 2600 game. So it clearly deserves its own. In fact, I almost feel like everything should get moved down one level so it can be an S tier by itself. No, I can't do that. Well, you know what game this is. Actually, maybe you don't. It's Raiders of the Lost Ark. Or Raiders Lost Ark. You know I have this version. So that is supposed to be John Williams' theme music to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Oh, there's the Ark. Now it's gone. Because, you know, that's exactly how the movie starts. Alright. So, that weird thing is your whip. That's a snake coming after me. I do like the way the guy runs. The guy. That's Indiana Jones. Okay, what are those things? Who knows? What is that? Oh, it's a basket. This must be the bazaar, and I'm picking up things from the baskets. Oh, look, I'm falling just like in E.T., and I died, I guess. Who's that guy? Is that a guy? Uh-oh, now I can't move. Now he's shooting at me. Now I died. This game is so much worse than E.T., I can't even begin. But both of them are just awful. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Raiders of the Lost Ark is F. Okay, next up we have Solaris. This almost feels like cheating because this game came out in 1986. Uh, but it is really a very impressive achievement for the Atari 2600. I know I said Hero is the best game on the platform, but this is actually the best game on the platform. Now, the cover art might look familiar. It's recycled from Star Raiders, which was also created by Doug Neubauer. By this time, Atari was actually letting their developers take credit on the games. Of course, Atari wasn't even the same company at this point. So, first you're taking off from the planet, and now you're in space, and there are somehow planets flying at you. But then you navigate around this map to go to different sectors, and you're trying to rid the sector of all of these enemies. It's really a pretty cool game. I sadly, in 1986, still was playing my Atari 2600 because my friends all had NESs, but I did not. And but I did have this game, and I thought it was pretty awesome. One thing it is not is musical. So, I mean, that sound and shoot is pretty cool. I mean, it's rad in the parlance of the time. The way that the ships are coming close and then zoom away. Basically, this was the attempt to fix all the problems with Star Raiders, which were mainly stemming from the fact that you needed to use two separate controllers to play it. This one you just play with a joystick. There is actually, if you have a second joystick, you can make the scanner come up at any time, I believe. But other than that, it's so much more playable and understandable than Star Raiders was. I got Star Raiders for Christmas in 1982. Oh, I was supposed to pick up that guy. Whoops. I got Star Raiders for Christmas in 1982, and I was bitterly disappointed. But this game completely redeemed it. Anyway, that's the game. There's no music to speak of in it, and the sound effects are just so-so. So even though I think the game is absolutely S tier, sound-wise, it's C tier. No, it's better than Pitfall. It's B tier. Okay, next we have Space Cavern. This was a game that I had as a kid for some reason. Actually, I know the reason. This was another thing about the crash that I didn't really understand at the time. But on TBS, they had a special deal where you could, because they had a mail order ads. This is pre-internet. 1-800-257-1234. I still remember the phone number. Anything that was mail order on TBS, it was 1-800-257-1234. You could get this set of 5 Atari games for $20, and I convinced my parents to order it for me, and this was one of the games. The other games are probably even worse than this one, but I have to say I did like this game visually, but oh yeah, pushing up or down, right. Pushing down shoots right. Pushing up shoots left, and then pressing the button shoots up. The sound these aliens above you make when they die is so annoying. And they're so weirdly ugly. This game is like a nightmare. Like, I mean, I was talking about Mega Mania being a nightmare. This is a real space nightmare. Oh, I hate this game. Space Cavern's an F. And now the game that launched 1,000 games with space in the title. Space Invaders, was one of the biggest arcade games of all time. It was the first massively successful arcade port for the Atari 2600. Some people may disagree with me, but I actually think the Atari 2600 version is vastly superior to the arcade version. The way that the aliens redraw as they move in the arcade version just looks like a really clunky early IBM PC game. They're moving in formation here. It's much tighter feeling. It's in color. The sound is great. Well, let's get into the sound and see. So there's this ominous marching of the aliens as they move across the screen. And as when the mothership appears, am I gonna get it? Oh, just missed it. It makes a great sound when you hit the mothership. I probably won't get to do that in this video. Anyway, as the number of aliens diminishes on screen, they start moving faster. And the marching sound gets faster. Oh, maybe I'll get this. Let's try this. Time it just right. Oh, no, I missed it again. Well, it's basically the same sound as when you hit an alien, but like 3 times. Oh, great sound when you die. It's like it's saying, "Aww." Okay, with this bad spacing, I'm probably gonna die. Gotcha. So, it's not music, but it's very effective use of sound. So, Space Invaders is A tier for me. Next up is Stampede from Activision. This is one of the first Activision games. And I was vehemently not into cowboy and like Western type stuff as a kid. So I wanted nothing to do with this game. But then I actually got it as an adult and played it, and it's awesome. It's really fun. I mean, it's kind of dumb, but it's just a lot of fun. I mean, the sound is pretty limited, and your horse's legs are kind of frightening. Wait, I had to get that sound in there. Oh, and then I guess that's the end of the game, because I let too many of them go by. That went really fast. But yeah, so the black cows, I guess, calves, whatever, that don't move. If you run into them, here. If you run into them, that happens. Whereas if you run into any of the others, you scare them forward. But you gotta be careful not to let too many of them run off the edge of the screen, because that's how you die. Anyway, there's like very few sounds in this game. Just that, which is pretty awesome. But it's not enough on its own to make it good. So the game is really fun in a kind of dumb way, but the sound is not so good. So I'm going to put it in C tier. Okay, next up is Stargate. This is the sequel to Defender. Kind of like with Ms. Pac-Man, Atari tried to use this as an opportunity to fix the problems, but notice the year it was created. By 1984, it was already too late, I think. But they also marketed this as Defender 2 as a way of trying to sell it. And I have to say, it is, including difficulty-wise, it is a lot closer to the arcade game. I'm so bad at it. That's it. This is how I am when I'm playing the actual arcade Defender. I last like 5 seconds. This is a really great game, though. This is one of the best arcade ports, not ports, adaptations on the Atari 2600. Pretty difficult. They did a good job with the sounds. And I think I just killed my little... everything's gonna fall apart for me here shortly. Oh god, they're all getting taken at once. And it's over. So, what do I say about that? Sound-wise, it's okay. There's no music. It's not bad. I might put it in B tier. Okay, Super Breakout. This was a game that I played a lot of as a kid. It's another paddle game that you can't really play that well with a gamepad. So I may not get far enough to really enjoy the experience here, but I'm going to go to game level 7, which is the progressive, where the bricks gradually move down. This was the version that I always played. Now, there's no music in this per se, but the hitting of the bricks and running up the score is musical, and there are several different sound styles. The game randomly picks one of them each time you hit reset, and you can keep hitting reset to choose the sound you want. That one's actually my favorite, but it's not the only one. I don't like that one. I really don't like that one. That might be the worst. There's one that always makes me think of balloons. Ooh, that one's the worst. Actually, I think that was the balloon one. There. This is the balloon one. Okay, let's go. Now, if I can actually manage to keep the ball going with this stupid controller long enough to get the ball up above the brick wall, to have the score really start running, then you'll get the full effect of this. See, when the bricks come down, the ball changes angle. I always hate this moment. Ooh. Ah, okay. We gotta keep going because we gotta hit this. I think it's gonna happen this time. Ah. If you hit with... There's limited angles that the ball will move at, but you can control the direction it goes by where you hit it with your paddle. I'm really living on the edge here. I just want it to go above. Come on. Okay, opening. Here we go, but it's going to get faster when it hits the blue. Ah! I'm better at controlling which side of the paddle it hits with an actual paddle controller. Oh my god, I'm not going to... You get 5 balls in a game, so I better do this here. Oh my god, it's not going to happen. Yes. Okay, we got far enough. I really like the sounds in Super Breakout. I consider it musical. it's musical-ish, and it's a key part of the gameplay. I don't think I can put it in S tier though, so it's going to go into A tier. Superman, I was going to do mainly because I wanted to see if it had the music from the movie. I don't know that I've ever played it. It's a terrible game. I've tried to play it a couple of times, but I don't remember if there was the music or not. It was the first licensed game that Atari produced in 1979. It's completely inscrutable, like a lot of the adventure games that Atari produced. But for some reason, I can't get RetroArch to load my ROM of this game. So we're going to move on to a similar and equally awful game, Sword Quest Earthworld. So they had originally planned to have 4 Sword Quest games. The 4th one was never officially released. Actually, I'm not even sure the third one was, but it was really rare. So there was Earthworld, Airworld, Waterworld, and Fireworld. I think Airworld was the one that wasn't released. I shouldn't even be wasting space in my brain with this. But anyway, there was a big prize contest. It's not on there, but there was this big contest that I don't know if you're going to win $150,000 or if they were giving away a total of $150,000 in prizes, but there was a jewel encrusted sword that the winner of this elaborate competition across all 4 games would win. Obviously, that never happened because they never even released the 4th game, and then the crash happened. But I think once I get into this, you'll see why people weren't super excited about this once these games actually started coming out. I mean, what the hell's happening here? Oh, so I push a button, and then now there's this. I guess each time you go into a room, you're supposed to push the button to get thrown into some kind of weird, impossible minigame. But I seem to have infinite lives. The question is, can I get across here? Or do I want to bother? This is like the least fun version of Frogger ever. But I can just press the button and be out of it. What happens in this room? Oh, there's a goat. And a whatever that is. So, oh, this is fun. What? Actually, this is kind of fun. Ah! But again, it's kind of just Frogger. This is like the river part of Frogger. So there was a comic book that came with it, or at least an instruction manual that you would have to reference to make any sense of what's supposed to be happening in this game. And they're all basically the same, like that. There isn't any music really to speak of, and all of the sounds are just awful, and everything about the game is awful. So, oh, there's Superman. He's going to go away because we didn't do that one. Sword Quest Earthworld is definitely an F. Okay, next up, Vanguard. This is another arcade port adaptation that Atari did. I had this game as a kid, really liked it, played it a lot. This was a pretty cool game. They had a really cool TV commercial for it. The one thing that's weird about it, though, is that Sorry, I just have to stop talking to hear the music, because that's the only time the music plays when you get that little the arcade game, I believe, had 2 joysticks. One for controlling your direction of shooting. I couldn't get down there in time. Oh, that's right. If you hold down the button, so this is the thing. The arcade version had 2 joysticks, I think, that let you. One was for moving and one was for controlling the direction of shooting. But since the Atari only has 1 joystick, you just automatically shoot in whatever direction you're moving, unless you hold down the button, which makes you stop shooting, and it also lets you fly faster. And I always just like to get those energy tanks to listen to this little song. Now there's, if you notice at the beginning, there's like a little map that I was in, because there's different waves. And I don't remember what you have to do to just get to the other side of the screen. Is that what you had to do? That can't be right. It's been too long. So in this one, you try not to die. On this level, there's like these balloon things that come out of the sides, and I'm flying down. So I'm flying in the directions of that little map. And then there's like the evil Gond, I believe it is the boss at the end of it. So it's an Atari game with a boss. There weren't too many of those. So this was a pretty cool game. It would have been more interesting, I think, if the background was black instead of gray. I don't understand why they did that, but I really like how colorful it is and the different phases. Of course, this one is not as fun because there's nowhere to get that music to play. I think there's even more stuff, and I don't know if there's any energy tanks. Anyway, you kind of get the idea of this game. That's the majority of it. It's a pretty good game. It's not one of the absolute best. And then, of course, the music is limited, but it's there. I liked that music a lot, so I'm going to give it an A. I was always excited about that music. Okay, next up we have another Coleco game. This is Venture. I didn't own this as a kid, but I borrowed it from a friend for an extended period of time. I always thought this game was really cool. It was based on an arcade game, but it's got this maze that you travel around, and then there's these different rooms that you go into. You have to avoid the weird, scary green guys. And you go into the room, and you're this smiling face. You can't touch those things even after you shoot them. That's the thing I always forget. But you're trying to stun these bad guys and collect the treasure. Next room, like the treasure, etc. Repeat. Oh, this one, you gotta watch out for those things. Pretty scary. Of course, I can't navigate this very well. This is a little bit easier with a proper joystick. There isn't any music. This would be a cool place to have some music. There's that do-do-do-do-do when you go in and out of rooms. So I suppose there's that. And the sound when you pick up the item. And it's a fine line between sound effects and music in these games because like there isn't music, but there also aren't really sounds. So what are you going to do? Venture is a good game. It's not the most amazing game, even though I was pretty impressed with it when I was a kid, just because I liked the rooms. But sound-wise, yeah, okay, I'll be generous. It's C tier. We're almost to the end here, so next up is Warlords. This is another. Well, this is a paddle game. I feel like it also did not have a one-player option, but maybe it did. I didn't have this game as a kid, and I was kind of perplexed by it when I would. Okay, some of these are moving on their own. Okay, this must be the one-player version. So this is really kind of like a four-player version of Breakout. It does, except you can catch the ball. That's pretty cool. So you're trying to bash in the other players' castles and kill their king, which is that weird L-shaped thing inside the castle. And what's really funny about this game is when you do kill a king and a player gets knocked out, their little paddle thing and the king don't actually go away. They just turn black. And when the screen flashes, you can still see that they're there. And the computer players are even still moving. And I guess if you're a player, an actual human player, you can move your thing too, even though it's black. So it's like a lot of shortcuts they had to take for these games for the Atari 2600. This, of course, was an arcade game too. And now you can see that the king down in the bottom right is gone, but not forgotten. Oh, that is as slow as I've ever seen the ball move in this game. I'm dead too. Okay, good time to stop it. So, Warlords is a pretty fast-paced, fun game. It's not the best sonically. I'm going to give it a B. Which brings us to our last game, Yar's Revenge. Okay, calm down. So as I mentioned, I got Yar's Revenge at Kmart in the closeout bin for $1.98. And this was when most of my friends had an NES. But I played a lot of Yar's Revenge and a lot of Solaris. And I'm really glad I got it because I do think Yar's Revenge is one of the best games for the Atari 2600. I always liked Variation 6. Can't remember why now, but something about it was different. And this was the one where I think you're like collecting, as you eat these, you collect some kind of points that let you. I don't know what happened that the left edge is getting cut off here. So this game is very stressful to play with. You can shoot these things too, but you get more of the credits for the gun if you eat them. Anyway, as I was saying, this game is very stressful to play. Get him. No. I'm gonna die. That's the end of the game. Alright. I have to at least get it once, because you need to see what happens. Just now that I did that, I can't shoot, because if I shoot, it'll send the cannon going. Come on, just turn into this world. Let's go. Funny thing is that you can touch it when it's in this form, Cotile. When it turns into this world and it's deadly. Actually, when Cotile turns red and is about to turn into this world, it's also deadly. Ah, so close. Dang it. No, that was not really good. I used to actually be good at this game. It's also easier with a regular joystick. Yes. That's what I'm doing. That's enough wine to do the secret message. I didn't even talk about the secret message in Adventure. This game has a secret Easter egg. Just like Adventure does. this roll has to be flying at you to make it happen. This time I'm having a good feeling about it. Alright, I give up. Anyway, that's that. So, also no music to speak of in Yara's Revenge, but it has that constant drone that creates the intensity. The sound effects are really well done to just continue to create that intensity. Definitely, I can't put it in S tier, but that's an A tier for me. So that's the complete list. I hope this was mildly amusing, and thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of my 3,000 subscribers. It's really hard to believe I've hit that point. If you are not one of the 3,000 subscribers, please become one. And let me know down in the comments if you'd like to see more of this kind of nonsense or my usual nonsense. Thanks for watching.